Welcome back to the Ark Survival Guide. This guide will show you the GPS and map coordinates of the 15 best base locations on the official Crystal Isles map. Now, a lot of you probably watched my guide on the best base locations for the mod version of the Crystal Isles, but they changed the coordinates and some features on the official version of the Crystal Isles, so I remade a much better version of this guide. We will show you the base locations to fit any playstyle, from starter base locations, Alpha Tribe base locations, PvP and PvE base locations, and some great base locations for gathering tons of resources like metal, obsidian, crystal, pearl, polymer, cementing paste, and even honey. We will give you a really quick overview of all 15 base locations, so you can use the chapters in this video bar or links in the description to skip to the base locations you're most interested in if you're short on time. But I highly recommend watching the whole video because there is so much useful information that will make your Crystal Isles adventures so much easier and more fun. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to check out our other Crystal Isles guides. And make sure you subscribe to this channel and ring the bell for all notifications because there are lots more great videos coming out soon and you won't want to miss any of that. So let's get started. So let's start by doing a really quick overview of all 15 base locations we're going to show you, and that way if there's some you want to watch and some you don't, you can skip around with the chapters in this video. Now, location number 1 is in the White Shoals on this beautiful tropical mountain. It's one of the safest places in all of Ark, and it's an amazing starter base location, but it's big enough for an alpha tribe, and there are actually resources to keep you busy for most of the game. And this first section will be a lot longer than the others because there's so many things to explain about how awesome that base location is. Now, base location 2 will be one of the best PvP base locations in the Crystal Isles map. It's a massive, beautiful cavern, one of the most beautiful places in Ark, and it's just got 2 entrances to block off, and then it's completely safe, no dangerous dinos, and lots of good resources. And it's in a really cool new biome of the floating islands in the Crystal Isles. Location 3 is one of the best PvP base locations for an alpha tribe in all of Crystal Isles. It is a massive mountain and almost completely hollow with an absolutely huge cavern that you can easily defend. Location 4 is an amazing base location because it's absolutely full of thousands of organic polymer and honey that you can easily harvest right inside this honey cave. Location 5 is one of the best places to get metal and obsidian on the Crystal Isles map, and it's a very easily defended flat plateau right next to the volcano with an awesome view. Location 6 is one of the best places to build a metal gathering base in the entire map, and there's also a hidden crystal cave that's completely filled with crystal. Location 7 is these really cool ruins hidden inside a cave in the floating islands, and we'll show you where to find that and some really cool hidden resources inside it. Location 8 is one of the best places to build a resource outpost, and you can get ridiculous amounts of oil, pearls, metal, obsidian, and just about all the resources you need right in one location. Location 9 is the Jungle Plateau, which is covered in obsidian and metal, and it's also got lots of aggressive dragons too, but it's a big enough space for an alpha tribe or just a small metal gathering outpost. Location 10 is a massive plateau in the Redwoods that you can conquer with an alpha tribe and have more than enough room and resources for the entire tribe very easily. And right next to that is Location 11, which is the hidden spider cave in the Redwood Forest. Location 12 is a massive plateau that's more than enough space for a huge alpha tribe. Location 13 is a desert plateau with a water source where you can easily build traps for the griffins and wyverns that live right next to it. Location 14 is the best place to get silica pearls on the Crystal Isles, where you can get tens of thousands of pearls in just a couple minutes, but it's also a beautiful location. And location 15 is actually 2 of the most beautiful places in all of Ark where you can build an awesome castle in the sky or a really cool tropical beach house. So now you can use the chapters in the progress bar or the links in the description of this video to jump to your favorite base locations you're most interested in if you're in a hurry, but I highly recommend watching the entire video because you might find that you love some base locations that you didn't even think you would. So let's get started with base location number 1, which is in my opinion the best starting base location in the Crystal Isles map. Now we'll start with what is, in my opinion, the absolute best base location in the Crystal Isles map overall. This is an amazing mountain range, which is an almost flat plateau. It's got multiple tiers, it's got enough space for an entire alpha tribe, but it's also one of the absolute best beginner base locations, and you can actually start right up here on this mountain with your first thatch hut and expand until you've covered the whole thing as an alpha tribe. So it's an amazing place to start your Crystal Isles adventures. Now, this spot right here has a water source. It's full of resources like stone, trees, lots of bushes and berries, and as far as I've ever seen, I've never seen anything more dangerous than a Dilophosaur spawn up here, so it's a very, very safe location. You can't even get raptors up here, and you basically can leave your stuff out in the open and not really have to worry. As long as you've got something as strong as a trike, it'll take out basically anything that attacks you up here. There's also crystal deposits and rare flowers and all kinds of good resources nearby, and this whole area is totally flat, so it's a great place to build a massive structure. There's two little choke points that you can wall off on the right and left of this section, and that gives you this entire plateau to live on. There's also big crystal deposits, and right next to this lake is a ramp, and you can actually walk a parasaur all the way up this ramp if you're very careful, and that'll take you up to this higher tier. And this place has some bigger dinos to hunt. There's a lot of parasaurs, actually lots of pteranodons fly around up here, and there's lots of metal and crystal. You can also bag a moss chops really easily from this place, and this entire upper level is a great place to live too. There's easy access to metal, it's very flat, and you've got a really safe area because there's only one point that you can access this by land. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as a PvP base because it is relatively easy to spot from the air, but you can only attack it by land on this one spot right here. It's the only ramp that goes all the way up the mountain. And if you're trying to access this when you're trying to get up here to start living here, there's about a 1 in 20 chance you'll actually spawn up here. But if you don't, you'll have to maybe run through this really dangerous swampy area, which has a lot of baryonyx and crocodiles and stuff. But it also has a great supply of beavers that spawn right down here. It's actually a very common beaver spawn location, and if we didn't have these crocodiles, we'd probably have more beavers building beaver dams, which are an amazing resource to have right next to your house. So this location right here, you'll get lots of beaver dams. You can steal silica pearls and cementing paste, all to your heart's content. And right over here, you also end up with lots of beaver dams too. And you'll also see Hesperornis, which you can harvest for organic polymer. They're like those ugly little duck things. And there's also pearls that spawn right here, right next to the mountain. So there's a really good supply of resources all over the place, and basically anything you need throughout most of your Crystal Isles game, you're going to be able to find right here in this base location. Also on this spot, you can build a ladder straight down. It's about 30 ladders to get to the bottom, but this little bay right here is totally shallow. It's about 3 feet deep, and you can park a raft here without it being destroyed by lead sickbees. Also, right down here below these crystal formations is tons of oil, so you've got a basically limitless supply of oil down here if you can deal with the sharks, but there's lots of oil along the bottom, and it's really easy access. Lots of pearls at the bottom of those oil deposits too. Now, if you happen to spawn around here on the islands, you can actually start very comfortably down here too, and you can build ladders going up these little slopes, and you only need about 5 stories worth of ladders to climb all the way up to that. Then you have this cool land bridge that gives you access to that mountain if you don't want to go through all the crocodiles to get there. And you also have Tropiognathus that spawn all the way around the mountain. You get lots of pteranodons actually landing on your base if you're living up on top of that mountain, so you can just take your pick and they'll come right to you eventually. Also down here at the bottom, there's lots of metal deposits on these little islands that you can pick up with a raft really easily. And there's a really good pearl deposit right over here just across from the mountain. And you can easily pop over here with a pteranodon and get a couple hundred pearls just harvesting these right here. So great resources around here. I highly recommend this as your first starting base location. And another really cool thing about it is there are actually tons of tropical crystal wyverns caverns that spawn just on the other side of this forest. So, oh, there's one over there. There's actually a pretty high spawn rate right here, so you can keep an eye out for a crystal wyvern that you want, and you can actually watch for them from your safe mountain and then come down and get them if you want them. Now, occasionally, most crystal wyverns are totally safe. They will be non-aggressive, but occasionally you'll have an alpha wyvern spawn, which will actually kick your butt. But they won't usually go up the mountain. I've seen them fly below the mountain, but not on the mountain. Now, you will have lots of lead sichthies spawning around here, but another nice thing about this area is they usually end up in shallow enough water they can't attack you, and you can just run up and scrape like tons of prime fish meat right off of them, and it's an easy supply of fish meat. And you can see a couple more crystal wyverns over here, so just all around, this is an amazing base location. I highly recommend you checking it out. And I know this was a lot longer on this particular base location that we talked about it, but all the other ones will kind of breeze through much more quickly. I just thought this one was worth spending a little more time on. So now let's talk about the next best base location on the Crystal Isles map. Now, this base location is an amazing PvP base location, probably the best PvP base location in the entire Crystal Isles map, and it's also amazing for alpha tribes. This is a massive cavern up here in the floating islands, and there's only 2 places you have to block off to keep it completely protected. So we have this huge mountain in the very middle of the floating islands, and the biggest island with a lot of orange crystals on top, and there's this waterfall that goes all the way down. And this spot right here next to this big crystal formation on this little flat plateau is the entrance. You go through all of these vines, through the waterfalls, which is pretty well hidden too. If you don't know where to look, you won't even find this base. But check this out. It is one of the most beautiful places in all of Ark, and it's completely safe. There is nothing that spawns in here as far as I know. I've never seen an aggressive dino in here, and there's lots of resources too. So aside from all of the beautiful stuff here, there's actually tons of crystal spawn points all over the place, and there's lots of metal nodes too. You've also got a water source down here, which is essential for any good base, and there's a lot more metal over here, but you also have silica pearls that spawn down there, which is also very helpful. We've got a bunch more metal formations over there, and lots of space to spread out, but you don't really even have to worry about blocking spawn points in here because nothing dangerous is even going to show up. Now there's a massive cavern. It just expands all the way back, and here's the location of the center of this main cavern, but there's a lot of other ruins back here. It actually extends way down there where that water is. There's lots more metal and pearls down there, and if you keep going, you'll see a bunch of ruins back in this area, and it's pretty easy to get lost back here, but this place right here with all of these pillars is actually the other main entrance, and there's a choke point right here where you can block off, and if you block this off and the main area back there where the waterfall is, you can have a completely secure PvP base, and those are the only 2 places people can attack from. And if we keep going, it opens up even more. There's tons of crystal and metal out here, and there's actually a back door that just opens up into the sky, and you can fly out and have easy access to all of the floating islands from there. Now you'll need flyers to even access this base location, and there's not a lot of trees inside, so you will have to expand around this area to get the resources you need. But once you're well established, this is an amazing place for a full alpha tribe to live. Now you will have trouble finding obsidian up here, but there's carcinos in the river that you can kill for massive amounts of organic polymer, and I've got a whole guide on how to do that, so check that out. I'll put a link in the description. Now this next location is an amazing base location for PvP or PvE, and it's big enough for an alpha tribe to live really happily in this location. Actually, it's big enough for 2 separate alpha tribes as long as you respect each other's space. So there are 2 massive caverns inside this entire mountain. It's basically hollow, and there's just a few entrances, and it is actually an amazing place to live. It's close to lots of great resources, and it's easy to defend. Now before we go inside, let me show you this. Right outside the front entrance, it is covered in metal and obsidian. There's just lots of it streaming out from this waterfall, and that waterfall is the main entrance. So you can get basically all the metal and obsidian you need for a little while right here, and there's also lots of beavers and beaver dams that spawn just down the river, so you can easily get a beaver to chase you inside the base and tame it very easily, and you can pop right out here and get all the cementing paste, wood, and all the silica pearls you need right here. There's also a great place to get silica pearls just a couple minutes flight away. So this is the interior of this cavern, and as you can see, it is absolutely massive. You will never run out of space out here, and there is just tons of room. There's a good water supply down at the bottom, and there's actually a river that flows in here that I think you can get a lot of decent sized water dinos into. So here's the location of the inside of the base, and right down here is one of the entrances. There's about 4 different entrances you will have to defend if you're on PvP, but most dinos won't even bother you in here. So there's also some good loot drop locations right next to it, and right here you've got this nice waterfall on both sides which has entrances. There's actually one on the bottom, and there's another entrance a little bit higher up the waterfall. So as long as you can defend those entrances, this is an amazing PvP location. And right up here is one of the other entrances, just a small space right there to block off. And then back here we have a very small opening that goes into another massive cavern. And right here, a little hard to see the map, there is a huge cavern that expands back here. And there's actually long tunnels that go even further. It actually goes out to the ocean. And there's enough space for another alpha tribe in here too. It's not as good for building, but certainly has some really cool looking space back here, and you could basically just expand all over this whole area. And I won't show you this whole back chamber because it's so easy to get lost in here. I will definitely get lost, but as you can see, there is more than enough space. But as long as you can deal with the cold, it's one of the best PvP and PvE alpha tribe base locations on the Crystal Isles map. So let's move on to our next base location on the list. Now, I don't normally recommend living near the Redwood Forest at all on any map in Ark because the Redwoods are pretty dangerous, but we are here on the edge of the Redwood Forest on the southeast corner here, right at the edge of the map, pretty close to the green obelisk, and you'll actually be able to spot this base location from the air from pretty far away. If you look towards the edge of the Redwoods, you'll see these big orange crystals sticking up on top of this big flat plateau, and if we head right to the middle of those, you'll notice there's actually a bunch of beehives, and here's about the location where this is. So if we head into this little crevice between those crystals, there is actually a massive honey cave inside here, and if I don't stab myself in the eye with a 30-foot long crystal, we can see here it is just completely filled with bees, bears, and honey. So all of these little beehives sitting on the ground here are actually something you can harvest. If you hit them with a pickaxe or a hatchet, you'll get piles of honey and organic polymer. And if you use the right harvesting dinos, you can get literally tens of thousands of organic polymer in just a few minutes from this cave. You will have to fight off the bears because they will pick a fight with you if you get too close, and if you mess with beehives, the bees will all attack you. But you'll get a ton of chitin from killing the bees, lots of pelts from the bears, and as long as you can defend yourself in here, this is an amazing resource location. Now, enemies that attack you in here will actually get webbed with this honey if they get too close to the honey droplets. As you can see here, I'm slowed down that way. And actually in the very center of the cave is a water source, and this cave goes all the way underneath the island, and it goes about halfway across the map underwater, and there's tons of black pearls, silica pearls, and other good stuff down there. But there's only a couple entrances to this cave, and another cool thing not a lot of people know is these little Christmas trees growing on the edge of the cave can actually be harvested with pickaxes or hatchets to get sap. So you can get all the ingredients for sweet vegetable cakes really quickly just by mining the ingredients in this cavern. And here's one of the entrances right here. Now you can build inside the cave, and it's actually a pretty good PvP base location if you want to be a jerk, But you can also build outside anywhere around here and avoid blocking the respawns for those amazing resources inside the cave. And it's totally flat on top. You can easily spread out and cover this plateau. And there's actually a lot of steep sides all around this plateau, and you only have to block off one area to the back here to control this whole flat plateau. There's also a lot of metal spawns on top here, and of course you've got all these redwood trees that you can build tree platforms on and have nice little tree houses all around here. So it's a great location, even though it is in the redwoods and it is relatively dangerous. You will run into a lot of nasty stuff up here, but if you can defend yourself, this is actually an amazing resource location. And there's also some great plateaus around the entrances of those caves, which are also good places to build bases. But here's the location again for this area, and it's an amazing spot to at least have a small outpost so you can keep collecting all of the resources inside that cave. And there's also a water source right here. You can build a well and have all the water you need in your base right up on top. So now let's move on to our next base location for the Crystal Isles. Now this next base location is one of the best places to get obsidian on the Crystal Isles map, and it's here in the brand new Emberfall Forest just to the bottom of the volcano. And this is an almost completely flat plateau that is protected on all sides by steep cliffs, and it has just one small ramp leading up to it. It's also got a very scenic waterfall, so you're actually right between a lava fall and a waterfall, so it's actually pretty cool looking too. But this has one of the best access points to obsidian in the entire Crystal Isles map. It's big enough for a pretty big tribe. I wouldn't say alpha tribe size, but it is definitely pretty big, and you've got a lot of really good resources right up here, but this is one of the only places in the Ember Forest where you won't have everything come and kill you really fast. There's also some silica pearls inside that river. You'll occasionally get like a baryonyx that spawns in the river, but you can take it out pretty easily, and this spot right here is the only land ramp leading up to that plateau. And if you block off this one little section, the whole place is totally secure. But the great thing about this base is just off the edge here, it is completely covered in obsidian nodes, just all over the place here. It's a little bit more dangerous at the bottom of the plateau, but you can get all the obsidian you need right here at this location. And it's just a really great place to put a manufacturing facility up top. There's also tons of crystal, which will give you all the crystal you need, and it's a really good location to launch aerial mining expeditions from this plateau because it's just a quick 30-second flight with an Argent Avis to carry an ankylosaur all the way up to the top of the volcano. You've also got some decent obsidian spawns down here and some more crystal and stuff. Lots of resources, but right up this volcano is actually a ton of metal and obsidian, and it's just a really quick flight to take an Argent and carry an ankylosaur here, get all the metal and obsidian you need, and just ferry it back and forth to that plateau. And that way you don't actually have to build a base on top of the volcano, which would actually block a lot of good resource spawns. So it's definitely a great place to check out if you want a ton of obsidian and metal, but I will say that last place we showed you with all of the organic polymer in the honey cave was probably the easiest way to get all the polymer you need because it's already pre-made and ready to go for you once you harvest it. So let's move on to our next base location. Now this next base location is a great place to get metal and crystal. It's probably the richest concentration of crystal on the entire Crystal Isles map. Now it is the Crystal Isles and you can find crystal just about anywhere, but I will show you this. Now first of all, there's a little island right here, which is a kind of quaint little island place you can live. Just thought I'd show you that for a second, but there's almost always elite Sichthies parked right outside waiting to eat your raft, so I don't necessarily recommend living there, unless you really love the island life and you like this biome. But right over here there's some easy access from the water, so you could take rafts right up here, and there is tons of metal spawns all over this area, just lots of them covering this whole path that leads up towards this little cave. And there's a secret cave back here which is just absolutely full of crystal. Lots of crystal around the outside too, but that cave has more crystal than you'll know what to do with, and also tons of silica pearls. So right here is the entrance of that cave. I'll show you in just a second. But first I'll show you that all around this area has lots more metal spawns, and there's actually a lot of very flat plateaus up here, and there's also a nice little nook that you can tuck a base in and have a really easy metal outpost. So right around here, there's this spot which you can block off with one single dino gateway, and then you've got this whole little plateau area that you can use to build a full manufacturing facility, gather all the metal you could possibly need, and you know, if you got some good storage space, you can just pop over here when the metal respawns, gather all of it, store an ankylosaur back here, and then ship it by water all over the map. And right in here, this cave is just absolutely chock full of all the crystal you could ever want, and there's also tons of silica pearls down in the water. So as you can see here, we've got tons of pearls, and there's crystal all over the place. Now you can technically build inside here. You can even build on top of these little pillars that I'm flying through. But there is an artifact in the middle of this cave. There's also lots of metal even inside the cave. But you gotta be real careful if you try to build in here that you're not on like a PvP server or even an online server. You'll probably get wiped if you come in here. But this is actually a really cool spot, and it goes all the way back to the jungle area. So it's a very fun place, and you can actually live there pretty happily if you're playing single player, but it's a great place to get all the resources you need. So let's move on to another awesome base location that also has some epic ruins, but this time in the sky. Now this next base location is really cool, maybe not the most practical base location to live in, but it's got some really awesome resources, and it's right next to that huge PvP base location we showed you, that massive cavern inside the floating islands. So right there beneath the huge orange crystal formation is actually that huge cave we showed you earlier. But this spot right here is actually the entrance to another cave, and right here we can go inside, and there's some really cool ruined caverns. Now you gotta watch out for these guys. What was he even doing? Like, they don't obey the laws of physics at all. So they're very sneaky like that. You've also got snails that spawn in here, and apparently they spawn two-headed snails sometimes. That's cool. But the snails will actually drop achatina paste, and you'll get lots of cementing paste just carpeting the ground out here as they slowly poop it out, which is pretty helpful. And they're really easy to tame and grab and take back to your base. Now, there is an artifact in here in case you didn't notice it because of the temple built around it and the giant sculpture of a dragon pointing right at it, but this whole place is really cool. There's only a couple small entrances, and it's actually massive in here. Now, there's not a lot of dangerous stuff aside from those lizards. There's actually a lot of silica pearls that spawn in the water down here, and a lot of cool little bugs and stuff. This actually used to have an entrance right there on the mod version, but they removed it on the official version. So on top of here, you've actually got this really cool ruined temple up on top right above the cave, and it's really hard to spot. So you might actually be able to build a base up here and stay safe from anybody noticing you, even as they come in and loot that artifact down there. So I don't necessarily recommend this for an online server because it does have the artifact, we are in a cave, and it does have the ruins debuff on your structures. But there's actually quite a lot of really helpful resources in here, and if you happen to live in that massive cavern right next door, it's a great place to pop over and grab some good resources. And here's the other entrance that goes up to that really high temple on the very top of the cave. But there's actually a lot of metal inside here too, which you won't notice at first, but right over here we've got quite a few metal deposits, and there's actually a ton of them inside the water down at the bottom too. So as long as we avoid all these nasty little lizards, right over here, which is actually right next to the artifact chamber, there it is right there, you've got this water underneath, and if we head down into the water, we've actually got a big cave which is full of silica pearls, and it's got lots of metal nodes underneath here. So if you don't mind diving a little bit, there's actually a ton of resources underneath this cave hidden down here. So once again, maybe not the best place in the world to live, especially on a server because of that artifact, but it's a great place to pop over and grab some resources if you need them. Now this next base location is going to be one of the best places to get resources in the Crystal Isles map. Now we'll show you one of the best resource-based locations in the entire Crystal Isles, but we'll start at this really massive mountain we showed you earlier because this location is actually right next to it, right here on the edge of the mountain. So another great thing about that last spot is it's so close to this location. This is a great place to build an outpost, and it's right here. And this entire little island inside this lake is just absolutely covered in oil. It's got some very flat plateaus that are pretty high up, so you could probably build a base just sticking out from those plateaus without blocking any of these respawns. But every one of these big black boulders is actually full of mountains of oil. So you can get thousands of oil just walking around and smashing all these boulders with an ankylosaur. But there's also these little tan rocks are actually oil nodes where you can place an oil drill and get tons of oil. I think there's like 5 or 6 of them on this island. So you can have all the oil rigs constantly pumping oil, and you can just pick it up off the ground too. Now just across this little lake are all of these little stones that you can see down here are actually silica pearls. There are hundreds and hundreds of pearls all along this shore, and actually right in this spot is a great place to find beavers too. So you might be able to see the pearls a little bit more when we get closer. There you go. Those are not rocks, those are clams full of silica pearls, like thousands of pearls worth. And as we get a little bit further up, we're actually going to run into some beavers and beaver dams, so you can get even more silica pearls and cementing paste from stealing from those guys. And there's the spot right there where this river opens up, and you can get lots of beavers here. Now, if you follow this river even further, we'll show you another spot that has tens of thousands of silica pearls. So pearls are never going to be an issue if you live out here, and you'll have all the oil you could ever possibly need. But there's also rich metal nodes all the way here, and lots of obsidian nodes all around the banks of this big lake. And the only problem with this area is there is a lot of dangerous stuff. You will be attacked by Argents, Eutyrannus, and all kinds of nasty stuff. But there's a couple other little plateaus over here you could build bases on, and a lot of little outposts you could make that are relatively safe. But as long as you've got something nearby here, this is an amazing place to come out, collect all the resources, store them in your outpost, and then just let them respawn. So definitely highly recommend building at least a small outpost over there. But if you live in this massive cavern, you can just pop over there, get all the resources you need, and come back to your home too. So on to the next base location. Now this next base location is an amazing spot to get tons of metal and obsidian. Now we're up here by the jungle area, which is just on the edge of the White Shoals, and a lot of you are probably going to spawn in the White Shoals and live there as your starting base location, but it's really easy to fly over to this plateau, and you've got a totally flat outpost location right here, which you can easily build a base on top and have it pretty well out of the way, and you've actually got a waterfall just below it. So you've got a water source right up on this little area. And this place is mostly flat. It's easy to get to by air, but it's not easy to get to by land, and it's really easy to defend. But we've got some dangerous stuff will spawn up here. You will see some carnos and stuff like that. But it's not terrible, and it is just covered in metal. And this mountain just keeps going across this huge flat plateau, and basically everywhere on this entire area is just completely covered with metal and obsidian, like all you could possibly need. So if you've got some good dinos to defend yourself, you could just come out here, mine all the stuff you need, and have a nice outpost. But you can also build all the way across this entire flat area, and there's enough space for a full alpha tribe to spread out very comfortably out here. So once again, there's just one path on the far left here that actually leads up to this area by land, so it's really easily defended by land, but it's pretty exposed by air. But one major problem with this location is you do have a dragon problem. You'll run into aggressive wyverns that spawn out here, and they will fly up to these plateaus, so you gotta be really careful of those. And the higher up you are, the less likely those things will actually fly up to your base and attack you. So be very careful up here, but it's definitely a cool spot to live. So on to the next base location. Now, this base location is good for a massive alpha tribe, and if you want to have a ton of space to spread out and you're pretty powerful at this point, this is actually a really cool place to live. It is in the Redwood Forest, and I've got to have a really good reason to recommend any base in the Redwood Forest, but this is actually a really cool spot with lots of good resources. So right here, where all of the rivers combine, which is pretty easy to spot by air, we've got a lot of good stuff right around here. There's actually lots of beavers and otters that spawn right here, and you'll get a lot of beaver dams with lots of good resources. There is tons of plant species X seed pods, one of the easiest places to grab those, as long as you can deal with the Redwoods dinos. And there's a lot of good resources right around here. Of course, the Redwood Forest is always really good for things like trees, stone, metal, and all that, but there's actually a ton of metal that spawns at the base of this waterfall, and at the top is even more rich metal deposits. There's a little place over here where there's a natural ramp right there that goes all the way up to this plateau. And this plateau is just a massive flat area, almost completely flat, but it's really steep sides all the way around. You've got these redwood trees that'll give you pretty good cover, so you're harder to spot living out in the open. But there's this tree right here that serves as a natural bridge. And then all the way down here, this entire area is totally flat aside from this one spot you'd have to block off. And then you have that entire plateau totally secure by land. Now, there is some metal up here in the middle, but there's an even better metal location nearby, and right there it is. There's actually a well that you can build on to get a water source, so you've got all the water you need up here too. All of these little Christmas trees can be harvested for tree sap, which is a great resource, and it's actually not very far from the honey cave. You can easily access that. So you've got this little log here you can use as kind of a natural land bridge, and then right down this river is one of the best metal locations. Check that out. That is all rich metal, and there is so much metal here you won't know what to do with it. And right at the base of this waterfall is another pile of good metal deposits. Those are the ones from before. So this is actually a really great spot to get metal, and you can spread out and have a ton of space to live if you're into living in the dangerous redwoods and you don't mind living out in the open. Now, if you prefer a totally hidden cave that's right next to this spot, this next base location will be amazing for you. Now, this base location is really epic for single player, but it may not be recommended for multiplayer because there is actually an artifact inside the cave. Otherwise, it would be one of the best PvP based locations in the entire Crystal Isles. But we're actually right next to that spot I just showed you, and really close to all the really great resources where all these rivers come together. So if we head down this river just a couple blocks, it actually goes underground into this wall, and right next to that spot is this little opening next to this tree. And if we head right inside there, there's actually a big cave which is very well hidden and very well protected. The easiest way to spot it is these green crystals. Now, there's lots of snakes. Snakes, why did it have to be snakes? But right here we've got our artifact in the inside. It's a really cool looking base location. And if you just want to build in a really cool looking spot, this is definitely a cool place to look. There's actually a lot of metal inside here, and there's this little place right here where there's a waterfall that takes you deep underground. And even if people are coming in here for that artifact, I think you could hide a hidden base down at the bottom of that waterfall and people probably wouldn't even notice you, because there's enough dangerous stuff in here they'll probably want to grab the artifact and get right back out. But if you can see how much actual metal there is in here, and all of the green stuff is mostly harvestable crystal, there's actually some spider webs that'll web people who come in here, but there's only two little entrances to this cave. Most people won't even be able to find it, and those that do probably won't spend enough time in here to find if you have a base hidden at the very bottom of that pit. So definitely worth checking out, but once again, I can't super recommend it for PvP, but it is a really cool place for PvE builds. Now this next base location I'll just show you quickly because it is an amazing huge space to build on, but there's not a lot of amazing resources nearby, and it's great for an alpha tribe because it is massive. This plateau here has just got so much space you can spread out from, and there is only one ramp that goes all the way up this entire plateau from the ground, so you can get to the ocean walking land dinos up and down, but there's only one choke point to protect for this entire plateau. There's also a well right here. You can build a well and get a water source in the middle of your base, and it's flat enough to build pretty comfortably, but there is enough of a slope to make it annoying. Now, you are vulnerable by air, so it's not the best PvP base location, but it is really easy to defend by land, and there's some pretty good resources up here. Not a lot of incredibly dangerous dinos will spawn, and there is a little bit of metal over here and quite a bit of crystal right at this spot. But there's not a huge amount of resources right on this plateau, so you will need some good flyers and some good mobility to spread out throughout the map from this place. But if you want a place that you're so high up in the air nobody's going to bother you except by air, this is a great place to look into, and it's definitely big enough for a huge alpha tribe. So let's move on to our next best base location on the Crystal Isles. Now this next base location is definitely for much later in the game when you're pretty well established, because you can't even get up to it without flyers, but this little plateau is totally safe all around because nothing can get up to it except by air, and there's actually a well on top so you can get water, which is one of the most important resources in the desert area. Now, a lot of people would probably not want to live up here because there's not much resources, but it does have one cool thing going for it. If you want to build a trap to catch griffins or wyverns, this is an amazing spot to do that. So it's a great trap outpost for those. The wyvern cave is right here, and that is the opening, so you can easily get them to chase you right over to that plateau if you've got a pretty good trap set up, and there is basically an infinite supply of griffins down there that you could pick out. Also, right next to here is a lot of Joshua trees that you can get tree sap from, and there's another little spot that can give you a well right here, which is a little bit better. There's some silk and some other good stuff over here, but generally I don't recommend living in the desert because it's only accessible by air. You are right next to some aggressive griffins and dragons, but if you're into this kind of thing, this is actually a pretty cool place to live, and it's definitely one of the best plateaus around this area. Now this base location is by far the best place in the entire Crystal Isles map to get silica pearls, but it's also just plain beautiful. If you're playing PvE and you just want to build a beautiful base and live someplace that's just very tranquil and cool looking, this is an amazing spot for that. But if you want silica pearls, all of the rocks you see here that are littering the bottom of this pond are actually clams full of silica pearls, like probably 10,000 pearls worth on a one-time server. So this is a ridiculous place to get pearls. But there's also this really cool waterfall that has a lot of metal formations all around it. Not really easy to get to them, but there's also a couple little tiny nooks where you can actually build a little PvP rat hole and hide right over here. There's just enough space for a little foundation and a couple of supplies, but it's a cool little hidey hole if you need one of those. But mostly I just wanted to show you this place because it is just breathtakingly beautiful, and there's also pearls all the way down the river and all across all of the rivers in the cherry blossom forest, so definitely check that out if you need a lot of silica pearls. And this next location I think is even more beautiful than this one. Now I've showed you lots of really practical and good efficient base locations for your playstyle, but I also wanted to cover for the people who just like building on Ark and not actually playing the regular game. This is one of the most beautiful places to build a castle in the sky, and we are right here in the floating islands at the edge of the cherry blossom forest, and there are some really cool islands up here that are just covered in pink and orange trees, and it's just an amazing place to live. Now, there are some good resources up here, like underneath this waterfall, we've got some good metal deposits, some silica pearls, and lots of crystal and everything. But for the most part, I just love this spot because it is totally beautiful. And I know some of you guys just enjoy building on Ark and just making really cool creations, and this is a spot that you guys are probably going to really like if you're into that. And I'm actually going to give you a bonus location. This last spot is practically useless for anything except building a cool beach house. So right below this area is this really cool tropical cherry blossom island. Does that look cool or what? So this would be an awesome place to just build a really cool beach house just extending off of this island. So if you want a nice spot to just kick back and enjoy the beauty of the Crystal Isles, this has just got an amazing view from this little island right here. Well, that's our top 15 base locations on the Crystal Isles map. I know this was a really long video, but there are so many different play styles for Ark and so many amazing locations in the Crystal Isles map that we had a lot to cover. If you enjoyed this guide or found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends, because I know they're probably looking for awesome base locations on the Crystal Isles map too. And make sure you check out our other guides on the Crystal Isles map. We have a whole playlist of really helpful guides, tips, and tricks that will give you all the best resource locations, all the best dinosaur spawn locations, and lots of other helpful tips that will make you have a much easier and more fun time on the Crystal Isles. We also have a live Let's Play series where my wife and I play Crystal Isles live and chat with you guys while we're playing, so check the links in the description of this video for all of those really helpful Crystal Isles videos that I think you'll enjoy a lot if you liked this one. And make sure you subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for all notifications, because we have lots more helpful content coming your way and you won't want to miss any of it. Well, I think I'm going to kick back on this tropical island and rest from all that traveling we've done during this video. So until next time, stay safe, have fun, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video.
If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media so your friends can enjoy it too.
And make sure you subscribe to this channel and ring the bell to enable all notifications, because we have lots of awesome new guides, tips, tricks, live streams, and Let's Plays for Ark and other awesome games coming soon, and you won't want to miss any of that.
We already have lots more fun and helpful videos just like this one, so check out the links at the end of this video to keep watching. You can also chat with other gamers if you join our channel's Discord at the link in the description.
If you want to earn great rewards while supporting this channel, click the join link next to the subscribe button for more information about our channel memberships. We want to give a big thank you to some of our biggest supporters of this channel: Sabo0283, Cole Parmenter, Emmy Fisher, Wolfgirl Be Like, Kelly Razak, and Ashley Owens. Thank you all so much for everything you do to make this channel possible.
So until next time, we hope you have fun on your own video game adventures, and we will see you in our next video.